In this week's Torah portion, we continue to learn about the inner workings of the tabernacle and are able to extract life teachings out of them. Shalom, my friends. This is the Akiva Gersh with Israel in 5, where we give you everything Israel in 5 minutes. Please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or want to keep the conversation going, please do so below in the comments. At the beginning of this week's Torah portion, try to say that word 3 times. We learn about the menorah. We've learned about the menorah before, and sometimes the Torah does that, comes back to an idea, a theme, a detail, repeats, strengthens, adds new details. But the main thing we learn about the menorah in the previous Torah portions as well as this one is that the menorah was made out of one solid piece of gold. It wasn't different pieces fastened together, but rather one solid piece of gold hammered out into the shape of the menorah, right? The pillar in the middle, the 3 arms on either side, the base and the bottom. And we learn that the reason for that is to show that God is one, right? One of the major ideas of Judaism, right? One of the major ideas, of course, of monotheism is that there's only one God and God is one. And by showing or having this menorah in the temple, which the tabernacle first and later on the temple in Jerusalem, it's a physical representation. It's a symbol of this spiritual concept. Right, so much of what was happening in the tabernacle were these spiritual ideas represented, carried out in physical form. We also know that the menorah obviously provided light. There were 7 lamps on top of it. And while the light was probably so beautiful to see, it wasn't so powerful that it lit up the whole room. Right? It wasn't there for physical light. It wasn't a lamp as we think of a lamp today. It was more about the spiritual light that it brought into the world. That was the vessel that was the closest to the Holy of the Holies, the holiest part of the tabernacle, and later to the temple. Once you got out of that area, the first thing you hit, so to speak, was the menorah. And it's really about shining that really beautiful holiness that's emanating from the Holy of the Holies, where originally in the first temple, the tabernacle, the Ark of the Covenant was, with the remaining tablets from Mount Sinai. A very powerful, holy, spiritual place. And the menorah is about spreading that light out into the world, right? Because the temple, the tabernacle and the temple, yes, it was a place for Jews to worship, the ancient Israelites to worship God and to connect to God. But also it was about bringing the light of God and the light of Judaism, the light of monotheism into the world. So the menorah we can almost see as like a flashlight, right? Really shining that light out into the world. The second thing I want to share from this Torah portion is that we learn about Passover again, repeating it once again, but there's an extra story here. There's some members of the Israelites who come up to Moses and say, hey, we couldn't bring the Passover offering in its right time because we were impure. Right, what, we're going to miss out because of that? Just because we were impure wasn't our fault. And Moses came back to them with an answer and said, you know what, you're right. And guess what? You're going to have a second chance. You're going to have a second chance to do this mitzvah, to do this commandment, to fulfill it. Exactly a month later, in the next month after the month that Passover happens, and they would have an opportunity to come to the temple and almost like replay the whole thing all over again. Bring a Paschal offering, have it slaughtered, eat it with matzah and the Menorah, and pretend as if it was a month before when all the Jews were coming to the Temple Mount or the tabernacle and bringing their offerings on the eve of Passover. And it's an interesting thing because you don't really see this second chance happening so much in the Torah. And we can say that this mitzvah, the inner aspect, the inner essence of this mitzvah is to teach the idea of second chances. God is very much into second chances and third chances and fourth chances and 1,000 chances, right? God is patient with us. We are human beings made out of flesh and blood, and God knows more than anyone or anything else that we are fallible and we are prone to making mistakes as much as we try. And it's okay, because the failing isn't the most horrible part. I mean, not that we should fail, right, and fall, but we're human and we do, right? The horrible part, so to speak, is not getting up afterwards. And God's always there to receive us after we get up from falling. The falling is a part of life, right? The real inner strength, the real spiritual strength comes out in us getting up and being okay with it. Of course, making amends, making changes, and committing to doing better, of course, right? That goes without saying. But also at the same time to not judge ourselves too harshly and to love ourselves and to understand ourselves, right? Because that's exactly what God is doing anyway with us as well. And so this idea of coming back the month after Passover, getting a second chance, is really about bringing that teaching into our lives throughout the entire year. That we should always be loving and non-judgmental with ourselves. At the same time, it's push ourselves and motivate ourselves to be the best people we can possibly be, without a doubt. But to know that we will stumble and we will fumble and we will fail along the way. And the most important thing is to keep getting up and giving ourselves a second chance, because that's exactly what God is doing.